And ADHD is something that people don't really talk about very much is that it's an emotional dysregulation challenge as much, if not more, than an attention challenge. So in ADHDers, our prefrontal cortex is really weak. Our prefrontal cortex is where all of those executive functionings live: prioritization, time management, all of that good stuff. And it also is where emotional regulation lives. So that's part of why ADHDers tend to be very impulsive, tend to have really big reactions to things that other people are like, it's not a big deal. What are you so freaked out about? Tend to be highly sensitive people. And because of that, those are all great things, right? Being very sensitive, being emotional. However, they can really impact our health, emotional, physical, and our relationships.
Hello, this is Kevin Pennell. Welcome to episode 139 of Toward a Better Life, and thank you, dear listener, for tuning into the episodes. In today's world, there truly is a need to seek balance, harmony, compassion, kindness on so many levels, personally, culturally, spiritually, to name some of them, but it all begins with each one of us as an individual. And that's what I like to share on the podcast from around the world, seeking others of the same spirit, heart, and mind. This is just like a school, folks. It's a venue to begin and continue our journey to wholeness and harmony, not only for ourselves, but for the generations yet to come. I also offer the opportunity for you to share your prose, music, poetry, or storytelling on the program. And please subscribe to the show if you haven't done so already through your favorite podcast platform. Keep following us for weekly magical insights into the world of earth-based spirituality, self-development, and self-care. Also, remember to support the program by leaving your review on Apple and Spotify podcast. Thanks a lot to those of you that already have, and just continue to do so. It helps boost the numbers. It only takes a minute to leave a review. Do visit my website, towardabetterlife.com, where you can contact me directly to learn more about a free discovery call and to help you customize your own journey toward your own better life, along with other prior episodes that are listed there, learning opportunities and services that I can offer outside the podcast, plus a few goodies to assist you on your journey. And do keep in mind, for anyone that's in the local area, I am offering continuing ed courses. I got a couple of them scheduled for October the 11th. Just visit my website to find out more information on that. And you can contact me through there and send all inquiries to me, Kevin, at towardabetterlife.com. Now on with the rest of the show. I'm welcoming Corie Wightlin to this week's episode, where we're talking about ADHD, mindfulness, and neurodiversity. Corie is an ADHD executive functioning coach, educator, and mindfulness facilitator who gets ADHD because she lives it. With over 25 years of experience in cognitive science, education, and coaching, she helps overwhelmed folks turn their chaos into clarity using real-life strategies that actually work. Her approach is rooted in self-compassion, practical tools, and meeting clients exactly where they are. Did you know ADHD can be a superpower? Well, stay tuned to find out more. So in today's episode, I'm going to be talking with Corie Wightlin. I get it right, Corie?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite subjects, and some of you know this already, but ADHD, there's a good place to go. But there's some other stuff we're going to key in, and we're going to kind of, thumb into this as we go along. But Corie, why don't you tell us about where in the world are you and what are we going to do today?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm in San Diego, California, currently. It's where I live with my family and my two rescue dogs. And I am an ADHD and executive functioning coach. So I support folks who, whether they're diagnosed with ADHD or not, build tools and strategies that help them live with more ease, more self-compassion, with more organization. And so I'm really excited to talk to you today about how we can do that in the face of this modern world where we have lots of mental clutter, lots of internal chaos, lots of things going on.
I
And
don't know
sometimes,
what you're talking about.
right? And sometimes it can feel really hard to just keep our heads above water.
That's it. Don't forget to breathe somewhere.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I really like the concept, and it kind of really dovetails in nicely with Toward a Better Life because with all of the, I'm going to say media input, that can be television, that can be news, it can be radio, it can be podcasting, it can be all kinds of stuff. And so many tentacles are out there that can move us about from one thing to another. And before we know it, we go through the whole day, and what have we accomplished? Absolutely nothing.
Hmm.
And it's just so darn frustrating. And there are a few tricks that I've learned, but I kind of hope that with you on the program, you're going to show me some new tricks. You're going to show us all some new tricks about how we can, kind of maneuver our way through the days and to make our days a little bit more, I'm going to say productive, a little more grounded, especially in the face of internal chaos that I'm sure none of us have these days. I'm sure everything is just kind of laid back, but so,
Yeah, it's super easy world to live in right now.
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Especially in California, but I'm not going to go there because you already know where we could go with that. Oh, anyway, so what led you into this, into working with folks with ADHD and executive stuff of that nature?
Yeah, so I myself have ADHD. I'm raising three kids with ADHD, and my dad has ADHD, which we know if you know anything about ADHD, that the apple, I say the apple doesn't even fall off the tree. We're just all on the same tree because it's so hereditary. And I was an educator for a really long time, and my kind of expertise and my niche in education was neurodiverse students. So I worked with students that had ADHD, students on the autism spectrum. And even when I was in general education, I seemed to get those kiddos because those were the kiddos that I worked really well with. And then when I left education, I knew I wanted to do something that helped support everybody. And I became a certified mindfulness facilitator and I started a mindfulness business. And what I saw is through mindfulness, how impactful it was on folks with ADHD. And we know from neuroscience, we know from MRI studies what it does to the brain and how it really supports the part of the brain that is the weakest in ADHDers. And so I went back again and I became a certified ADHD coach. And so then I started my practice in 2021 and I really marry mindfulness and ADHD coaching so that my clients can build self-compassion, can build that present awareness, can help build some impulse control, and really be aware of what it is that they need to show up in the way that they want to show up.
Okay, so I've got like six questions.
Okay, wonderful.
Oh, we'll just kind of weave them in here. But a couple of things came to mind when you were talking about that. A question that I have is I hear so much more about it, and I'm not sure if it has to do with awareness or we're becoming more aware of it. But in your work, Corie, do you suspect that ADHD in and of itself is on an upswing, or are we just more aware of it?
That's a great question. I think two things. I think we're definitely more aware of it. So what some folks don't know is that ADHD wasn't even diagnosed until the early 80s. So I hear a lot of folks that were raised before that saying, "Well, I didn't know anyone that had ADHD." Well, you wouldn't have because it wasn't diagnosed. However, I'm sure you knew people who presented ADHD. I told you
Hmm.
my dad has ADHD. He spent most of it, yes, most of his elementary school in the coat room because he was in trouble or, and he looks back and he's like, oh my gosh, if I had just gotten the support and help, I could have been so different, So I do think that we are more aware. We're also, even recently, in the last 10 years or so, we used to call it ADD and ADHD. We thought it was two separate diagnoses, but now we know that it's everybody that has ADHD has some sort of hyperactivity. So it's hyperactivity inattentive or hyperactivity hyperactive. And so I think that as we evolve, we're realizing the complexities of ADHD. The other
Okay.
side is, I think the way that three things. The other one side is the way that we're raising kids is very different. Kids are much more sedentary. They're asked to focus longer in school. There's less recesses. And so the things that used to help regulate naturally kids with ADHD are now being taken away. And so
Hmm.
I think we are seeing more kids who are impacted by ADHD, not because there are more brains that are ADHD presenting, but because they don't have the same structures in place that they did even 20 years ago.
Hmm.
And then the third thing is we now know that girls and women can have ADHD. So when ADHD was first being diagnosed, it was a belief that only boys and young men had ADHD,
That's not fair.
right? And so there's a whole generation of women who are now getting diagnosed in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who are high masking, high achieving, people pleasing, who just built this armor that's actually really harmful because
Hmm.
they struggled a lot.
Yeah.
So that's my long answer to a simple question, but I think that it's not on the rise, but we just know so much more now.
Okay, so it's because I was wondering about influences, and I'm thinking about lifestyle. I'm thinking about our nutrition,
Hmm.
and I'm thinking about stuff like TV, and I'm thinking
Yep.
about, I'm on my phone all the time, and
Yep.
and I'm loaded with potential distractions, and whether or not all this media that we are experiencing, whether or not that has an adverse effect on us to the point where we could actually become ADHD because of all this stuff. Is that possible?
It actually isn't. So an
Okay.
ADHD brain is born ADHD. It's the way the brain is wired. It's the way that the brain processes.
Hmm.
However, when I
Okay.
said you don't have to be diagnosed to come and see me to work with me, is what I'm seeing is people that aren't getting diagnosed. They go and they say, I think I have ADHD. They do all the ADHD tests. They're like, you actually don't, but they are having trouble with focus, attention,
Mhm.
prioritization, all of the things. And I do think it's exactly what you said, Kevin. I think that even from a young age, we don't have that extended extension attention span. We have immediate gratification all the time, right? When I go to a doctor's office, I pick up my phone and I scroll. What
Mm.
did we do 30 years ago? We sat, maybe we read the highlights magazine that was there. So our nervous system and brains are being trained to have poor executive functioning.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. So it's on the upswing only in the sense of we're becoming more aware of it.
Mhm.
Um, I want to do a little side thing here
Yeah.
because I've heard the term and I think it would be helpful. What is neurodiversity? I know what it
Yeah.
is, but what is it from your perspective?
Yeah. So neurodiversity is an umbrella term that means brains and nervous systems that don't process information in the same way that of what we call a neurotypical brain would.
Okay.
So a neurotypical brain would be one that most people have,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
And so a neurodiverse brain doesn't process information in the same way. So it could be dyslexia, it could be general anxiety disorder, it can be anxiety, it could be ADHD, it can be autism. So
Mm.
those are all examples of ways that brains are different and process information differently than what we call a neurotypical brain.
And I don't know that it would be I'm going to use the word, I don't know that it's necessarily a negative or a fault that we have because we have ADHD, but it's another way of maybe looking at myself and saying this is the way or this is the why I do what I do. And I know that in others that I've talked with, ADHD can often be identified with people that are very creative. Is that not so?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Many ADHDers are very creative. They're leaders. They think outside the box, oftentimes very charismatic. There's lots of strengths that come with an ADHD brain. I am one that I don't refer to it necessarily as a superpower. I know that's language that works for some people because there are so many things that are really hard with it too. And I think if
Mm.
we frame it like this is a superpower, then it sometimes puts a lot of shame and like, oh gosh, then I should be really happy about this, but it's also really, really hard. So I frame it as there are really awesome strengths, and then there are also a lot of challenges. And so, someone with a neurodiverse brain, if they can figure out how to build the tools and systems that work for those challenges, that work for them, that don't work for the rest of the world, that work for their brain, then those strengths you can really highlight them and they can really shine.
So is that what your book works with? Your book is Balance Your Business, and does that really help us to understand how to work within the parameters of ADHD in a more positive frame, as opposed to you need to take this drug, you need to take that drug, you need to take the other drug so you can stay balanced? But
Yeah.
I'm going to think that there are other ways. I don't take a drug for it. I
Uh-huh.
just learn to do other things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, so my Balance Your Business is not directly and explicitly for ADHD brains. It's for really anyone who is living, like we talked about, in this chaotic, this inner turmoil, feeling like you cannot balance, work life and home life and family life and friend life, and literally feeling off kilter, off balance. Um, that being said, it does work very well for ADHDers. Everything that I wrote in there is for an ADHD brain as well. However, it's not specifically because I really want the tools and the thoughts in there to be for everyone. And what it really does is it helps you look at different ways that we respond to stress and how maybe you can build tools to help you respond to stress in ways that feel a little bit more natural, feel a little bit more helpful or supportive. It's ways that we look at how we schedule and, leaning into what works for you and trying not to fight it. So, for instance, a lot of ADHDers work really well at night and not very well in the mornings. Not everyone, but that's a general way that we work. Our circadian rhythms are actually also 2 to 3 hours different than neurotypical people. So our melatonin doesn't kick in to 2 to 3 hours later than neurotypical people. And so, one of the concrete examples in there is if you can have a really slow morning, do what you need to do in the morning and shift your workday to being later. If that is how your brain works. A lot of ADHDers have a crash in the afternoon crash, for many different reasons. And so, one of the other tips is that's in the book and that I help clients with is figuring out how to take care of yourself in that afternoon crash. Not just going to get that giant cup of coffee or drinking the Monster Energy drink, but what are some ways that you really can regulate your nervous system, get that serotonin and adrenaline back up and move on with your day in a way that is really helpful and healthy to you. So the book is really about all of these little tiny pieces that we can put in that seem really simple when they're just, one little piece, but when they add up to a really much more calm and easy and joyful day.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's all good.
Yeah.
So, I'm guessing that that's available on your website. Is that
It is.
or
It's available on my website and also on Amazon.
okay? That was the next question, but it's
Yeah.
Balance Your Business.
Yes.
And okay, so that's easy enough to do, so they could order it right through your website, and we'll
Yeah.
probably revisit that again.
Okay.
Um, and I've mentioned, we've kind of gone off on a tangent here, and I think it's just because there's so much information out there about ADHD, and the thing that I think about a lot when I look at this is let's get some good facts out there, as opposed to, well, she said, well, he said,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, there's more to it than that. And so the question that I do have, I jokingly say that I've never been diagnosed with it, but if somebody really wanted to know if they have ADHD, and we have this little thing in front of us, we're talking over it right now, it's called a computer, and we have this little thing called the internet, and we know that the internet is really not necessarily a reliable resource. But that said, are there things online that somebody could do to determine at some level maybe they are But to really get diagnosed, I guess you probably need to go see a professional. So could you
Right.
give us some
Yeah.
insights on those two
Correct.
viewpoints?
Yes. So when people are first kind of wondering, I always send them to CHADD, the CHADD organization. It's CHADD, and it's the International ADHD Organization. And they have some checklists and some self-reflection on their website that you
Mm.
could get started. It's obviously not perfect, but it's a way to kind of think like, okay, am I just stressed or is this ADHD? Or am I just sleep deprived or is this ADHD? And then the other thing is, yeah, exactly. It's ADHD is a medical diagnosis. So you would need to see a psychologist or a medical doctor who does diagnose ADHD and go through a little bit of a neuropsychological evaluation.
So could my primary care physician do this, or is it something that I would need to converse with my primary care to say, hey, do you do ADHD testing?
Exactly. So some do and some don't. So
Okay.
some some are very comfortable with it and have experience with it, and some refer you out. Same with pediatricians if you're a parent listening and you're thinking about your kiddos. But I always recommend your primary care being your first stop and having them tell you what they think and where to go.
Okay. All right. So if someone that's getting older, is there an advantage to finding out if you have ADHD, or does it really matter?
Wonderful question. The answer is both. So I'll tell you why I think
Oh,
both.
great.
That's my non-answer. Um, okay, I'll tell you the pros. Why? So the first one is I'm actually one of my clients right now is 70 years old. She's my oldest client right now. She was just recently diagnosed a few years ago. And so I can speak to, her positive experience with it is that she finally has answers for why her brain and her nervous system and the way she thought and the way she worked for so long didn't fit into the norm. And so she feels so validated. And now she, for the rest of her life, is going to build these tools that work for her. And she just has all this freedom. She just feels free. She's not taking any meds, but she just has a lot of freedom and a lot of unanswered answers to unanswered questions. That sound right? Yeah. And she feels really validated and she feels really free.
Okay.
Another pro for folks, if they do want to take meds, they can figure out what kind of meds might work for them. So when a lot of people are misdiagnosed with anxiety or depression instead of ADHD, especially women, they take anxiety meds, they do all the talk therapy, they do all of the things that you should do for anxiety, and they still can't get to work on time, or they still keep forgetting their keys, or they still, can't motivate to do something and they don't understand why. So getting a diagnosis, and if they do want to go down the meds route, switching the meds to a ADHD med can be really life-changing as
Mm.
well. Do you need it? Absolutely not, right? If you are not someone who wants to do meds or someone who feels like you have all these unanswered questions and you just want to figure out what works for your brain, that's totally, totally okay too. Like I said, I have many folks come to me saying like, I think I have ADHD, but I don't know, but here's what's happening in my life. And I say, awesome, let's do it. Let's work with it. So if you are someone who really feels like that would fill a gap in your life or really feel like freeing to have that and feel like you finally understand, go for it. If you're someone that's like, I'm not really that interested in the label, I'm more interested in figuring out how my brain works, you definitely can do that too.
Okay. So the other question is we've mentioned about drugs and the use of drugs. Classic is probably Ritalin, but
It used to
I
be, now there's many.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
used to be. But at
Yeah.
any rate, um, are there holistic approaches to treating ADHD as opposed to taking drugs?
100%. So what I say about meds are pills don't teach skills, right? So I will say for a lot of people with ADHD, meds are life-changing.
Hmm.
They they help calm that buzzy brain. They help you get through the day. They help you adult. I have three kids that have ADHD. Two are on meds. One isn't. She's fine. She doesn't need to be. The other two, if they don't take them, they're old enough now. School day is terrible. They can't concentrate, right? And emotionally dysregulated. However, I am not one that says everyone needs to take meds at all. So what I say is pills don't teach skills. And so even if you are on meds and you have that calming effect and you have that regulating effect, you still need to build the tools and skills that work for your brain in order to execute those functions. So
Okay.
just taking the pills doesn't teach you how to be on time, doesn't teach you how to organize your to-do list, doesn't teach you how to motivate, doesn't teach you how to prioritize. So the holistic approach, one is exercise. Our bodies need movement. An ADHD body needs movement more than any other person on the planet, in my
Hmm.
opinion.
Okay.
Daily movement. And I always say this doesn't have to be, you don't have to go to the gym, you don't have to become a gym rat. You can go on a walk, you can dance, you can do yoga, you can, walk up and down your stairs 10 times. It doesn't matter. But our bodies rely on the movement to regulate our neurochemicals. So movement is a big one. Sleep. We have to have sleep. And this is tricky because a lot of ADHDers don't sleep well. So figuring out how to get sleep is essential. And in fact, some research has come out that ADHDers need more sleep than a neurotypical brain. So if we say most adults need 7 to 8 hours of sleep, I would suggest 8 to 9 for ADHDers, which is hard, right? So movement and sleep. And then this one, water, drinking water and eating regularly. It is a classic ADHD thing for many reasons that we don't eat regularly and we forget to drink water.
Hmm.
And what happens is our brains and our nervous system rely on hydration and energy to stay online, right? To stay
Hmm.
regulated, to do all the things. And so when we don't drink water and we don't eat regularly, we're fighting the uphill battle that is already uphill for us. And then also there are some other ways that you can help. So one of the things that has really come out recently is saffron, the the herb, the
Hmm.
spice saffron, that helps ADHD brains. So
How,
they've created now saffron pills that
how
help
so?
regulate. I'm going to be honest, I don't know the exact science in the brain, and I don't know if other people do too, but it acts as a calming mechanism for the ADHD brain. So it increases attention and it increases focus.
So you brought up saffron, and it's so interesting because saffron in and of itself, in the studies that I've done through the years, would tell you that the energetics of saffron is it's spicy, sweet, bitter, neutral. But what does it work with? Well, it works with, in traditional Chinese medicine, we would say that it works with the spleen, the heart, the liver, and the kidney. And I can tell you right off that if you have somebody who has some issues with their spleen, and I say spleen in the sense of not so much the organic spleen as
Right,
much as it is the spleen meridian or the spleen channel in
right.
traditional Chinese medicine, that usually they're going to have a few issues anyway. But the one I also want to look at is liver. And the liver is usually one that's going to talk about anger issues, or they're going to talk about being frustrated very easily if their liver's out of balance. So
Okay.
that would really dovetail nicely when you think about it. But it revitalizes blood and it counteracts inflammatory conditions associated with excess pitta, which is the fire element. At the same time, it can be looked at as an antispasmodic, and it also helps to rejuvenate, and it's also an alterative. So that tells me, and I don't know if it explains it much, but it says that it can alter a current state of being. And that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense with saffron.
It does. Yeah. Well, you sold me. I'm gonna go get some saffron. I haven't tried it yet. I've
Yeah,
had many
good luck.
clients that have tried it, but
Yeah, check the price first.
yeah,
You might
exactly.
want to sit down.
Exactly. Exactly.
So we've got exercise, we have sleep, we have water, we have an herbal supplement, which would be saffron. And I would say too that before you leap out to go grab a couple of ounces, and if you can afford that much, go for it, of saffron, you need to consult with somebody who is familiar enough with how herbs work.
Yes.
And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but it's a quick plug in the sense that herbalism and herbalists in particular have gotten some bad raps over the years because people don't read and because people don't pay attention to what the proper dosages are. You need to be careful about how much you take. So just be mindful of that. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
great
necessarily
advice.
going to harm you, but it may not be a good thing. So just check with somebody. Anyway, so
That's great
sorry,
advice.
didn't mean to go off on
No,
that
no, I
tangent.
appreciate that. That's good learning for me too, for
Yeah.
sure.
So we've got those four. Do we have any others that we look at when we look at different ways that we can address ADHD
So
holistically?
I'm gonna plug mindfulness for sure.
Okay.
So building a mindfulness practice. And I always say like I'm a mindfulness for the people. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
mindfulness for the ADHDers. So that does not necessarily mean you need to do a seated meditation for 30 minutes every day. It doesn't mean that you need to, go climb a mountain and sit at the top at sunset and breathe. What it really means is building in moments where you practice bringing your attention back to an anchor, back to your body, back to your breath, back to the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we practice that, we create those neurological connections. So it literally is like going to the gym for attention for
Mm-hmm.
our brains. And it also, in ADHD, something that people don't really talk about very much is that it's an emotional dysregulation challenge as much, if not more, than an attention challenge. So in ADHDers, our prefrontal cortex is really weak. Our prefrontal cortex is where all of those executive functionings live, prioritization, time management, all of that good stuff. And it also is where emotional regulation lives. So that's part of why ADHDers tend to be very impulsive, tend to have really big reactions to things that other people are like, it's not a big deal. What are you so freaked out about? Tend to be highly sensitive people. And because of that, those are all great things, right? Being very sensitive, being emotional, however, they can really impact our health, emotional, physical, and our relationships. So, mindfulness also helps us understand what we're feeling when we're feeling it and
Mm-hmm.
paying attention to when those feelings are starting to bubble up. And it literally builds, I call it the fast forward remote. It builds a fast forward remote in our brain because we don't have one. We don't think about consequences naturally. They
Mm-mm.
they just we're like, we'll worry about that in the future. So mindfulness helps us to pay attention to what's happening now, give ourselves that pause so that we can think forward, which we don't do very well.
Mm-hmm.
Building a mindfulness practice is a really, really powerful thing. And there's MRI studies that show that the gray matter in the prefrontal cortex increases with a mindfulness practice, that we can actually shrink our amygdala, which is our fight,
Mm-hmm.
flight, or freeze part of our brain, and increase our hippocampus, which is our memory. And we know ADHDers and their memory, not so hot. And so it really literally can change the physicality of our brain to
Okay.
help us with our ADHD.
So we've got five really good guidelines to start off with to help work with our stuff. Can
And I would
I'm
just
gonna
pick one to start with. Don't try to do all five
Oh man, come on.
because we're also really good at that, right? We're going to do all five and then we're going to be like, this is too hard. Oops, I just threw my pencil. And then we're going to stop. So just pick one, figure that out, and then move on to the next one.
Okay. So I'm gonna try for a sixth.
Okay.
I'm going to ask if it would be functional
Okay.
because you said that you've listened to my podcast, and I talk about druidry and I talk about earth-based spirituality, paganism, things of that nature. And, people have said, what exactly is a druid? And I say, well, it has to do with a certain respect and honoring of the natural world. And we tend to really be very protective of the natural world. And we connect with the natural world in a very unique way. So that being said, my brain goes to the thing of saying that I know that for me, if I'm having a particular, if I could say an ADHD day, I go out in my grove, which is beside my house, or I'll go for a walk. Now, there you go with the walk thing. But just connecting with nature, how much does that help people with ADHD?
That's huge, right? As if you're a sciencey person, you can either go on the science route that we know that connecting with nature increases happiness, it increases our serotonin, it decreases our cortisol, which in ADHDers, that's part of our issue is our cortisol gets really high and kind of disrupts us. So yes, a 1,000,000%
Yeah.
connecting with nature and you know, being in nature is a huge way to regulate for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Oh yeah. You can use that.
Okay, I will. I'll give you credit. Don't worry.
Oh dear, my goodness. So there's so many different possibilities we can go, and there's so many different directions we can go. But if we were to pick out couple of things as far as your work and so forth, uh, what would be something of a priority? Because I mean, I know what one of the things is I look at the term is certified ADHD coach, and there, with all due respect, there are so many coaches out there today. And it's kind of interesting to see someone who has a niche of coaching.
Mhm.
So you're an ADHD coach and you're certified, so you went to school for this.
I did. Yes. I went to school for a year and I did 100 coaching hours under supervision. So I'm definitely certified. Yes. So, and I don't call myself like a life coach because I'm not. I'm not a certified life coach. I'm a certified ADHD coach. And so I really understand not just how to support people with ADHD, but I also went to school to learn about how ADHD affects our brain, the physicality of ADHD, the nervous system, also for about meds and how meds might support or not support, and how to talk to people about the different medications. And so I am very passionate about that's my people and that's who I help and that I'm consider myself someone who knows a lot about ADHD, not just because of my lived experiences, because of all my education.
So I think you've just answered the question, but just for definitive purposes, what would you see as the difference between you and a life coach?
I would say that a life coach is someone who supports like the general population
Hmm.
and building a better life, right?
Okay.
And I am someone who comes at it with the lens and the glasses of a neurodiverse brain. So
Okay.
if someone just kind of needs general help, I mean, maybe I could do it, but I definitely feel like I'm much more suited and supportive for folks that are struggling with their executive functioning skills and that do have ADHD, either or, because we just have to look at things a little bit different. Because if you are struggling, that means that all of the things in the world that you have been told to do aren't working for you
Hmm.
and that we need to look at things from a different angle and really get personalized and really get intentional with how your brain works. And not to say that life coaches are not personal, don't get personal either. They definitely do. I just think I come from it at a different angle. I come in the back door maybe a little bit more.
Okay, Corey. So is there a correlation with ADHD and anything else along the lines of, say, dementia or Alzheimer's?
It's a great question. So there's actually new research that they're trying to explore this now, and there hasn't been any set any set studies. So what that means, right? We don't know for sure. There hasn't been a scientific correlation. What we do know is that the things that help dementia, that help put off dementia, are the same things that
Mm.
help ADHD.
And
So
that's,
mindfulness, working your brain, staying
hmm
active, staying connected, right? And so I would not necessarily say there is a connection because I know right now we haven't made that scientific connection yet. However, what we do know is that if you participate in activities that support your ADHD, you are saving off dementia as well.
okay. That makes sense. That makes good sense. So do you see people virtually? Do you see people in person? How does someone work with you?
Yes, I see people virtually, so just like this. So I
Okay.
have clients all over. I've had clients in other countries. Yeah, so I have a couple different options. So I have folks can work with me one-on-one in a coaching capacity. I also have a group coaching program that I run a couple times a year, which can be really fun because you get to meet other folks that are in the same boat as you and get to hear from other people and have accountability buddies. And then I also have a college readiness program for those kids that are just leaving home and all of a sudden all of those safeguards are gone. And like, how do
Poof.
I get myself fed? How do I get to class? How do I not stay up all night? And so that one I really like too because it's really, intentional and it's a pretty like concise. We just go over like the main things kids need to be successful in school, and they have those tools. So I work with people in different capacities. I also do speaking engagements. So I really like talking to folks about ADHD and executive functioning and how they can help improve that in either their lives or their work.
I think when you look at your website, it says, I help people with ADHD live efficiently, calmly, connected, and balanced. That pretty much says it all.
Yeah.
And just what your website I see here is Whiteland Coaching Service dot or excuse me services dot
Uh-huh.
com, and
Correct.
Whiteland is Whightlin coaching services.com, and it's a very good website, everybody. It's simple and it's very direct at the same time. So I like it. And it
Thank you.
probably points itself well to the thing of keep it organized.
Exactly. Exactly. I know my audience, right?
Yeah. We need help.
Yeah.
Lots of it. I think my best friend, and I may have mentioned this recently, but my best friend is actually a little paper calendar, and it's a booklet. And my father introduced me to something many, many, many years ago called daytimers. And I don't know if anybody
Yeah.
remembers that, but
Heard of daycare.
daytimers, yeah, I need to have the quote, the paper brains. Because if honestly, Corie, if I have the paper brains, I can organize my day. Like,
Yep.
like it's great. And there are
Yep.
so many little keys that I've used, and maybe, I don't want to go too far on too many, rabbit holes here, but one of the things that I know that has been very helpful to me in controlling my level of lack of attention, we'll say, is I will write down, say, I've got six major things I want to accomplish today.
Mhm.
And my battle sometimes is to say, okay, I know that this one is going to be involved. I need to cut it off after 1 hour, let's say 30 minutes, and be able to be accountable enough to myself and respectful enough of my own time to say, that's it. 30
Mhm.
minutes, it's done. Move on to the next one. Have
Yeah.
you found that type of thing is helpful?
Yes, you are building your own tools. You're doing exactly what I work on with folks.
Yeah,
And what I love that you said this is what works for me, right? This is my day timer is what works for me because you know what? That's not going to work for everyone. Some
that's
people,
right.
right? And so you have found what works for you and you're leaning into it. And even in this world that's probably telling you to go digital, you're like, nope. I got this. This is how it works for me. And then the other thing is helping yourself get out of that hyper focus, right? Making a plan before you even start. So I love how you said, I know this one's going to get involved, which to me is like speak for, okay, I'm going to get hyper focused and lost in it. And it's gonna take my whole day. I'm gonna forget to drink water. I'm gonna forget to do all the things. And so you already are making a plan before you even start it on how you're gonna get out of it. And
That's
that's
me and that's me
you.
and yeah, that's me and editing my podcasts.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Okay.
time's gone. It's like,
Yes.
oh no.
Yes. Yeah. So making those plans ahead of time is huge for hyperfocus.
Yeah. So if you were to leave the folks with something, what would you leave them with as far as just some other thoughts that you want to just put out there for folks who are working through ADHD and really looking at it as their superpower?
Yeah. So I think, there's two things. One, lean into what works for you. Don't try to fit into the molds or the tools that the world is telling you, or your friends are telling you, or your partner's telling you. Lean into what works for you and capitalize on that because that's where your superpower is going to be. And try to cut out the noise that's telling you that's not how to do it.
Hmm.
And the second is building a self-compassion practice. So people with ADHD, whether diagnosed or not, have get 20,000 more negative messages by the time they're in middle school than neurotypical kids. So even from the time we're little, we're getting told, why can't you just do this? Why do you always forget this? Oh, you didn't bring your homework again? Oh, you're always late. Sit still, right? And so that creates, am I talking like you when you were a kid? Is that?
Yes.
And so, yeah, so our brains create these neurological connections that are really, can be really shameful and negative when it comes to those kind of things. So, if you're going to start anywhere, I would start by learning how to reframe those stories that you tell yourself and to give yourself that same kind of compassion and grace and kindness that you give the other people in your life. Because that's really where the foundation of all of the other things can come.
We could do a a whole nother podcast on that, Corey, about
Yes.
self-compassion,
Yes.
just because.
It's a huge one. Yeah,
Yeah, love yourself. Yeah, and then,
exactly.
we just love yourself. But what does that really mean?
And
Take the
how?
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, particularly
Yeah.
when I'm such a jerk.
Right. When I make all these mistakes all day, when I'm always forgetting things, right? Yeah.
Well, think of the repercussions. It's just, I guess it needs to be talked about, but think of the repercussions of this when you're talking about a child that has been told from uh, kindergarten or maybe even preschool, what do you mean you didn't do that? What do you mean this? What do you mean that? And
Mhm.
that can really build up some really negative stuff where as I'm an adult, I think, geez, can I do anything right?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Yep.
And so, build the compassion and just take time to care for yourself. So, self-care. There we go.
Huge. Huge for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been beyond words. This has been grand, and the insightfulness that you've given for ADHD is wondrous, and I can see where you are certainly very, very passionate about this, and I
Right.
think that's great. But Corey, what does Corey do to create a better life for herself?
I have certain things that I have to do every day
Hmm.
that my rituals. So I move my body every day. I take my own advice. I also make sure that I connect with my kids. So meaningfully, I ask questions. I make sure that we have at least a few moments every day. And then I'm also a meditator and a journaler. So I create a better life for myself through meditating and journaling. And then I really am very passionate about helping the world. So I'm also someone who speaks to speaks to issues that really mean a lot to me and I make sure that I'm pushing those issues in a direction that I feel like is a compassionate and caring direction. So those are my biggies.
Those are your biggies. And
Yeah.
that's the point. So everyone, reach out to Corey, and one more time, let's hear the website.
Wightlin Coaching Services. So WIGHTLIN coachingservices.com.
Okay. And your book.
Balance Your Business.
And it's
Amazon
available
or my webpage.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
This is lovely. Now I'm going to say go for a walk in nature and enjoy the rest of your day out there in California. Thanks ever so much.
I will. Thank you.
Well, that's our show for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. And a special thanks goes to Corie Wightlin for sharing her extraordinary insights into ADHD. And thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in and supporting the program. You can contact Corie through her website, and the links are available in the show notes. As always, if you're seeking insights and advice on how to create a better life for yourself, and if you'd like to dive into self-care, self-development, experience hypnotherapy, distant shamanic work, or Reiki, drop me a line, kevin@towardaBetterLife.com, for your free discovery call. You can also visit my updated website, towardaBetterLife.com, for some past episodes, blog entries, ways to enhance your spiritual journey, upcoming events, like one next month. I'm going to be offering 2 continuing education classes for massage therapists on October the 11th. The details are in the website. Just click on the Learning tab and on to Coming Events to register and for more information. There are also a few products there to assist you on your journey, so do visit my website or write to me with your inquiries, kevin@towardaBetterLife.com. Please do subscribe to the program through your favorite podcast platform, and be sure to leave a review if you would. It just helps to spread the word about the program and helps create a better life for each and every one of us. Always remember, if you'd like to share your story, music, prose, or if you want to be a guest, write to me, and that's going to be kevin@towardaBetterLife.com. Until next week, do enjoy your very special journey toward a better life.